Okay. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Lunch Table Sports Podcast. Today's episode, we finish the series where we count down our positions, but in this one, we're doing it a little differently. Last video was a little longer, less people watched it, so we're going to shorten it down to top five at each defensive position. Let's start off with our interior defensive line.
All right, so starting off interior defensive line. This one, I think might be the easiest pick besides Patrick Mahomes for quarterback. Yeah, Aaron Donald. I think, in my opinion, second best player in the NFL with all positions considered. He's so dynamic, and you have to double team him. If you don't, it's an automatic sack basically if you don't double team him. He's a machine down there. He's an absolute beast, and I just think that there's no one else you put ahead of him.
Yeah, this might be the easiest pick. Like Mahomes, you just said, he's unreal. He's so big, like in size. He's not that tall. He's more of an undersized defensive tackle, but he uses that to an advantage. He has like the best finesse moves, best power moves, and he's like 290 pounds. He's a stud, man. There's no one like him.
Yeah, there's no question about that pick. My number two, this is where it gets a little tougher. I got Cameron Hayward there. I think he's a big part of that Steelers team, that defense, which is so good. I think he's behind TJ Watt. He's their second best D lineman, and he's a big part of that inside run stopping and pressure defense that they got there. And that D line is pretty underrated in my opinion. Not underrated, but they're really good, and I think they don't get enough credit for that. That defense is top tier in the NFL still, and he's a big part of that, Cameron Hayward.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good pick. But my number two is Chris Jones. Chris Jones is just such a huge part of that Super Bowl team against the Niners. He really was unblockable. This year in the Super Bowl, he wasn't really that big of an impact, but in the playoffs leading up to it, he was a huge force. I don't think that defense is the same without him. He just provides so much pass rush, so much run stuffing. He can play each position on the defensive line, makes a huge impact, and that I have him at two.
Yeah, I got him right after you. I got him at number three, Chris Jones. Like what you just said, he's that big D lineman that they don't have the greatest O line, but they have a good one. But Chris Jones is by far that anchor on that D line. He's a run stopper. He can rush the quarterback. Just like you said, he can play any position outside if you need him to, inside. And like you said, he's a huge part in that defense and that their ability to win that Super Bowl and make it back to Super Bowl.
My number three is DeForest Buckner. DeForest Buckner is one of the best pass rushing defensive tackles. He was great on that 49ers team 2 years ago. He got traded to the Colts. Ever since then, he's been a force on that Colts team. He was probably the second best pass rush defensive tackle. I got him at three.
Yeah, I like that. I got him a little bit lower down, but right here at this pick, number what do we have, 4 here? I got Kenny Clark. I think he doesn't get that much credit on that Packers team, but he's a stud. He's a big, strong, physical guy. He's 6'3", 313. He's only 25. I think he's going to be that anchor in that D line for years to come for the Packers.
Yeah, it's a good pick. I don't have him in my top five, but he's right up there. I was debating between him and my five a ton. My number four, like you said earlier about this player, is Cam Hayward. That Steelers defense is just crazy good. Every single year, we always write them off, say, oh, they're not good. They got way worse. And they come back and they always shock us, just like last year. That Steelers defense was probably the best defense in the NFL. Cam Hayward is a huge part of that, just providing pass rush and run stuffing ability. He was a huge impact.
Yeah, as you know, I had him at number 2, so I like that pick. And then my number 5 to round it off, I got DeForest Buckner. Ever since he came over to the Colts, he's been that big force on that D line. Can play interior, plays a little bit on the outside. He's only 27. He's a huge guy, 6'7". He's unblockable, and he just wreaks havoc on that D line for the Colts, which they had a really good defense last year, and he was a huge part of that.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I would say I had him a little higher, but that's still good. My number 5 is Grady Jarrett. Grady Jarrett, in my opinion, doesn't get enough credit because he's on the Falcons. Falcons haven't really done anything with him. I think if he was on a different team with better coaching, he'd be a much better player. But he's already a stud for the Falcons. He's a little more undersized. He's only 6'1", but he uses that to advantage to create leverage. He's a great power rusher, great speed rusher, great in the run game. I have him at 5.
Yeah, I agree with you. He's really underrated and doesn't get very much credit on that Falcons team, but he's a big part in that defense. And if they didn't have him, their defense would be even worse. All right, so moving on here, you want to go straight to edge rushers? Just keep it on the D line.
Yeah, let's go edges.
So edge rushers. To start off my number 1 for edge rushers, I got Myles Garrett there. Myles Garrett, he's a freak of nature. He's a huge guy. He's super strong. He's that big. He's the best player on that Browns team, in my opinion. He's unblockable off the edge. He's super fast. Gets around O linemen. He's 271. He's strong too. So he's strong and fast. So he's just completely unguardable for those O linemen. And he's that best player on that Browns defense and their team, in my opinion.
Yeah, same as me. I got him as my number 1. He's coming off a career year having 12 sacks. He's just a force, though. I think he missed a couple games this season. Not positive, but I know he missed a few. He's just a force. He's really uses that to his ability. He doesn't kind of have the production that T.J. Watt had this year. I was back and forth between them, but due to his freak nature, he's on number 1.
Yeah, I agree with what you said with T.J. Watt. I got him at number 2. You can make the case that he should have won Defensive Player of the Year this year. He had a better statistical year than Aaron Donald, but I mean, you can make that argument. He had 15 sacks, 1 interception. I mean, he was just like Myles Garrett, just completely unguardable. He's a big guy too. Uses more of his speed though. He's a really athletic guy. Relies on that speed more than the power, and I think that he's going to be that guy that's on the Steelers defense and on that team for the rest of his career.
Yeah, that's a great pick. I got him at number 2. He plays outside linebacker in that Steelers 3-4 scheme. Like you said, he's a little more. He's not as huge as Myles Garrett. He's only 6'4", 250. That's still big, but not as big as Garrett. He uses his speed. He's the best speed rusher in the NFL. Tackles can't keep up with him. It's just a mismatch every single time you line up on the outside. So that's why I have him at 2.
Yep. And then to move on to the next one, number 3, I got Khalil Mack. I think that his past 2 years have been a little bit down since his years before. But I think he's going to have a bounce back year this year. He had 9 sacks last year, which is more than he had in 2019. He had 1 interception too to add to that. He plays that outside linebacker too, but he's definitely an edge rusher. He's just like Myles Garrett, in my opinion, same play style. He's big, fast, strong, got the whole package. And ever since he came over from Las Vegas to Chicago, he's been that huge part in that defense and why they've been so good.
Yeah, I mean, our lists are identical so far for edges. I got him at 3. Ever since he got traded to Chicago, he hasn't been as great as he was in Oakland, but he's still a key piece of that defense this year, making the playoffs. I think he'll have a bounce back year this year, and I expect him to be a 10-sack guy this year.
Yeah, huge part in that defense. Moving on, number 4, I got Von Miller. I go back and forth between him and some other guys. He didn't play last year, so you could say that he might be a little bit lower down now. He's getting up there in age too, but I still think that him coming back in that super good Broncos defense, he's going to have just as good of a year as he's had in the past. I think that year off is going to help him more than anything. He's going to be right back to that defensive player of the year type player that he was.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I don't have my top 5 just due to injuries this year. He's definitely one of the top edge rushers of all time, so no doubt about it. My number 4 is Chandler Jones. Chandler Jones struggled with injuries this year, so he didn't play a whole ton. But before this year, he was right up there with Defense Player of the Year candidate. He's one of the best speed edge rusher guys in the NFL, similar to T.J. Watt. He's more built like Khalil Mack though. But you pair his size and weight with his athleticism and speed rushing ability, it's dangerous.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I had him just outside my top five too. I was debating between him and Von Miller, but I gave the edge to him. And my number five, I got Joey Bosa. He's coming off a little bit of a down year in the sack category, but I think he's going to get that back up to around 10 plus. He's that anchor on that Chargers defense. With Derwin James coming back, I think that defense is going to be underratedly good next year, and he's a huge part of that. So I got him at my top five for sure.
Yeah, same with me. I got Joey Bosa. Um, like all these guys on the list, I feel like I keep saying this, but he's an athletic freak. That size and athleticism with the way he moves is really unmatched. You said it earlier when you said he had a down year in the sack category, but they got a new head coach, new defensive scheme. We'll see how he does in that. I expect him to have a great year this year.
Yeah, for sure. And then so we can get right into the next category. Let's go to top five linebackers. My number one, I got Fred Warner. This one could be a little bit more of a debate, but I think that he's younger than some of these other guys. He's got more potential. He's in my opinion that probably that best player on that 49ers team on that defense. He had a little bit of down year last year, but he didn't play all that many games. He was injured. With that healthy 49ers team coming back, that defense, I think that they're gonna be scary good again, and you got to look out for him. And I think he's the number one linebacker.
Yeah, definitely. I was debating between him and another guy who I'm about to say, but that's a great pick. My number one, though, is Bobby Wagner. He had a little bit of a down year this year, but I just think, I mean, you see what he's done in past years. He's unreal. 2 years ago, it's always been like the Bobby Wagner, Luke Kuechly debate. Who's the best linebacker? Luke Kuechly retired, and I just think ever since then, Bobby Wagner just kind of took that role as number one and just ran with it. He's not fallen off, and I don't think he will for a while.
Yeah, I like that. I got him at my number two. He's that commander in chief on that Seahawks team. He runs that defense. He's a leader on that team. He just like you said, he had a little bit of a down year last year, but I think he'll bounce right back. He's still a freak. He's super physical, super strong, big hitter, and that enforcer on that defense. And he's, in my opinion, numbered out. No question. That number two, maybe even number one, but I got him at number two.
Yeah, my number two is Fred Warner. I mean, he's just a force. You can't even run up the middle when you play the 49ers. You see teams always running out to the outside because they don't want to face Fred Warner right there in the middle of the defense. He's so physical. He's not afraid to, get up in your grill. It's an offensive lineman. He's a great run stopper, probably the best run stopper in the NFL. And I think that his ability to stop the run puts him right there at number two.
Yeah, those number two guys are pretty interchangeable. My number three, though, gets a little tougher from here on out. I got Darius Leonard. He just came in the league 2018, had a great year last year, a little bit down from his 2019 year, but still a great year. That Colts defense is super, super good, and he's a big part of that. He leads the defense in that middle of the field. He's a big guy. He's physical. He can do it all. He's the whole package, and in my opinion, he's number three for sure on this list.
Yeah, that's same here. I got Darius Leonard. He came in as a rookie 2018, and he led the NFL in tackles with 163. He's just a tackle machine. He'll track you down all the way from across the field. He makes great plays. He's solid in the passing game. He's your prototypical linebacker, and he's the best at what he does.
My number four, I got Eric Kendricks. I think this is without a doubt no-brainer pick. He's pretty underrated. He doesn't get enough credit on that Vikings defense. Him and Harrison Smith, they're the leaders back there. He's just so good. He can do it all. He's a great run stopper. He's a good pass coverage guy. Can cover those tight ends, even some wide receivers. And he, in my opinion, is without a doubt a top 5 linebacker.
Yeah, that's a good one. I have him right below my 4 spot at 5. My number 4 though is Levante David. Levante David is on that tremendous Bucks defense. He's kind of that leader on that defense. He's making plays all over the field. You could say maybe he's interchangeable in that Bucks defense. Maybe if they don't have him, they'd still be good. But I just think he keeps everybody in check. He's the glue to that Bucks defense, and that's something like you can't really get other than him.
Yeah, I got him right below you at number 5. Just like you said, he's that leader on that team. He's a great mentor for Devin White, and those two are probably the best linebacker duo in the NFL. That scary Bucks defense, which you saw in the Super Bowl last year, how good they are. He's getting up there in age. He's a little bit older, but I still think you got to have him up here. He's a great run stopper. He's physical, and he's a guy that every team in the NFL would want on their team for that leadership ability.
Yeah, for sure. My number 5, I said it earlier, is Eric Kendricks. He's super underrated. That Vikings defense had kind of a down year this year with injuries to Anthony Barr. Their cornerback play wasn't really good. The loss of Xavier Rhodes. We'll see if that defense bounces back, but I still think Eric Kendricks is tremendous. His size, his speed, his athleticism. He's great in the passing game. He can cover tight ends, even cover some slots. He's great in the run game, tracking running backs all over the field. That puts him at 5 for me.
All right, yep. I like that a lot. Moving on to the next category, top 5 safeties. At my number 1, I got Minkah Fitzpatrick. I think this one was a little tougher. I went back and forth between a couple guys, but I think Minkah Fitzpatrick, he's such a difference maker on that Steelers team, on that super good defense. And ever since he came over from Miami, he's been that best player on that Steelers secondary. And he's lockdown guy. I mean, he can play. He plays all over the field. He runs around. He plays some coverage. He drops back. He gets a lot of picks. I think he's that whole package. And he's, in my opinion, number 1 safety in the NFL.
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, I was in the same situation as you. I was going back and forth, because there's not really a clear-cut number 1 safety. I'd have to lean towards Tyrann Mathieu for me, though. He's such a huge part of that Chiefs defense. He had a great year this year. He's a ball hawk. He's great in the run game. He's a little shorter. He's only 5'9", but he doesn't play 5'9". He plays way bigger than that. And I don't really think there's anybody like him. So that's why I have him number 1.
Yeah, I got him just below you, number 2. I agree with everything you just said. I mean, he had 6 picks last year. He's I mean, there's a reason they call him the Honey Badger. He's just feisty and doesn't stand down to anyone. He's that anchor on that Steelers secondary, or on that Chiefs secondary. And he's, ever since he came to Kansas City, he's made a difference on that defense. And without that, I think that Chiefs defense is pretty average without him in that secondary. And he's just a huge, huge part to that team and to why they're so good right now.
Yeah, for sure. My number 2 is Minkah Fitzpatrick. I think Tyrann Mathieu and Fitzpatrick are the 1 or 2 safeties, no doubt about it. I would say Fitzpatrick's probably the best ball hawking safety in NFL. He's coming off a 4-pick year. Before that, he had a 5-pick year. He's just, you can't really run deep against the Steelers defense just because of Minkah Fitzpatrick. He'll cover all those deep routes. We'll make sure nothing gets past him. He's also not bad in the run game. He's solid. He can play in the box a little bit. I think that's good enough to have him there at number 2.
Number 3, this one, it gets a lot tougher from here after those top 2 guys. But I lean towards Justin Simmons here. He had a great year last year, 5 picks. Great year before that, too, 4 picks. I mean, he's just like those other guys. He's a ball hawk. He's fast. He's a freak of nature. Can run around the field and take away guys on the deep stuff. Pretty good run stopper, too. That Broncos defense is scary, scary good in that secondary, and he's a huge, huge part to that.
Yeah, that's a good one. I've him a little more down on my list, but he's still on the list. My third one is Buda Baker. Buda Baker isn't really the best ball hawking safety. He hasn't had an interception his whole career except this year he had two. I definitely think this was his breakout year. He had a good year last year, but not as good as this year. Um, he had, I'm pulling it up. He had 90 solo tackles this year for safety, which is very good. He led the league in solo tackles for safety. He shuts down the run game. He plays in the box. He plays slot. He plays all over the place. He's just a chess piece in that Cardinals defense, and that's very rare in a safety.
Yeah, I like that. I got him just outside my top five, just because of that. I mean, he doesn't really get any interceptions, but he does everything else besides that, and he's reminds me a little bit of Tyrann Mathieu with that feistiness, but I like that a lot. I'm a number four. I got Jesse Bates. He's super underrated. He doesn't get talked about enough, in my opinion. He had a pretty good year last year. 3 picks. I mean, he averaged 3 picks on his career, but everything else he does well. I mean, he's a good run stopper. He can run around. He can stop the run. He can play down in coverage too, cover the low stuff. And he, in my opinion, he's the most underrated safety in the NFL, and he's without a doubt top five.
Yeah, Sam, I got him at number four. He's a very well-rounded safety. He said it. He had 3 picks every single year of his career. He's great in the passing game. He's great in the run game. He's just a very well-shaped safety. I don't think he gets talked about because he plays for the Bengals. The Bengals defense isn't really elite. It's one of the worst defenses in the NFL. I definitely think they're going to be up there this year with all the acquisitions they made in the offseason, signing Chidobe Awuzie, getting Mike Hilton. But Jesse Bates is definitely the best player on that defense.
And rounding out the list, at my number five, I got Harrison Smith. He's just super reliable. You know what you're going to get from him every year. I mean, he had a career year in picks last year, tied for a career year in picks with 5 picks. He's a run stopper for sure. He can play in that box. He can play over the top too. He's super physical, super hard hitting, and he's a guy that just makes a huge difference on that defense for the Vikings. And without him, they're also, just like I said before, a pretty average defense. And he's just a guy that brings his physicality to the team, to that defense, and makes them hard to play against.
Yeah, that's a great pick. I was debating between him and Justin Simmons, but I had to give the edge to Justin Simmons. Justin Simmons had 96 tackles this year for a free safety, which is very good. He also had 5 picks to put along with it. I think his play style is very similar to Jesse Bates, and in the sense that they're both well-rounded safeties. They're both ball hawks, but they're not afraid to get dirty in the run game. That Broncos defense is definitely going to be scary next year with everybody coming back. So we'll see what that defense can do. But Justin Simmons is definitely a big piece of that defense.
Yeah, in my opinion, they got the best secondary in the league for sure, and he's that number one guy in that secondary. So definitely top five. Moving on to the last category, top five corners. This one, in my opinion, the second easiest one behind Aaron Donald for the defense. I got Jalen Ramsey. I mean, everyone knows who he is, how he plays, and he's just that lockdown guy. I mean, put him on any receiver in the league, shuts him down, takes him out of the game completely. And he's just a dog on the defensive side. He just doesn't back down to anyone. Trash talk everything. I love his whole demeanor, and he just, for sure, in my opinion, the number one corner in the league.
Yes, completely agree with you there. He's number one. He'll take your receiver out of the passing game. He'll shut him down. He only had 1 pick this year, which people may say, like he shouldn't be number one. He only had 1 pick. But that's just because nobody throws his way. They already know how good he is. It's very rare you see a quarterback throw a jump ball when Jalen Ramsey's on you. So with his chippiness, his great man coverage, zone coverage, his speed, his physicality, there's nobody like him. I got him at 1.
Yeah, that's a great point you brought up too. I mean, some of these guys they don't have that high of interception numbers, but just like you said, that's because they don't get thrown the ball to their side of the field at all because they're just so locked down and no one wants to throw their way. Number 2, I got Jair Alexander. He, I mean, clear cut number 2, right behind Jalen Ramsey. Only had one pick last year, just like Jalen Ramsey, but just like we said, he doesn't get thrown the ball to his receiver. He's a lockdown guy. He can cover you, shadow you in coverage, like run your routes for you, just lock down, take anyone out of the game, just like Jalen Ramsey. And he's the second best lockdown corner, in my opinion, in the league. And he's number 2 for sure.
Yeah, completely agree. He's my number 2. I mean, picks don't tell a story. He plays great coverage. So you brought up he doesn't get the ball thrown to him just because of how good he is. He's for sure the second best cover corner in the NFL, no doubt about it. He's chippy, just like Jalen Ramsey. He won't let you get past you without a fight. That's good enough to put him at 2 for me.
Moving on to number 3, I got Xavier Howard. I think he's a clear cut right now. I mean, he had an unreal year last year, 10 picks, just unheard of, really. He had 7 picks 2018. He's just a ball hawk machine, just brings down those interceptions. He's not as good as a lockdown corner as some of these other guys, but he's great in zone. He's great at reading the offense and what the receiver's going to do. And what I just said, I mean, 10 picks, it's unheard of. I think he's got to be number 3 for me right now.
Yeah, same. I got him at 3. I mean, 10 picks. That's pretty insane. He's not the best cover corner. I wouldn't say he's a top 5 cover corner, but he's tremendous in the zone. That Dolphins defense loves to run 4 corners out there running zone defense. And quarterbacks don't even try to throw the ball to him. He's just a ball hawk. He sees the ball, he gets the ball. I mean, he could be all the way on the other side of the field. He can see the quarterback's eyes go to the left, and he'll sprint across to get that ball. His zone ability, his toughness, puts him right there at 3.
My number 4, this one might be a little debatable. I go back and forth between these 2 guys, but I got Marlon Humphrey here. He had a great year last year, only 1 pick, but just like we've been saying, it doesn't really tell the story. I mean, he's so good at forcing fumbles. He had 8 forced fumbles, tie for NFL record for the most forced fumbles through a player's first 12 games. I mean, that's just insane. I mean, he's so good at punching the ball out. He can force a turnover at any point in the game, give you that momentum boost you need, get the ball back to the offense. And I think any team wants that. And he's young and he's got a great future ahead of him. And he's that best player on that Ravens defense for sure.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. He's the best slot corner in the NFL. That Ravens secondary is definitely not the same without him. For me, though, I got Stephon Gilmore at number 4. I mean, last year we were calling him the best corner in the NFL. He had a career year with 6 picks last year. He's definitely, in my opinion, the 3rd best cover corner still in the NFL. Had a little bit of a down year last year. Not terrible, but I would say he's above average last year. But I definitely think he'll take a bounce back year this year. I still think he's a top 5 corner in the NFL.
Yeah, I got him just below you at number 5. I think I would have him way higher. Just like you said, we were talking about him being the number 1 corner in the league last year or 2 years ago. But he had a little bit of a down year last year, just like you said. So a little bit of recency bias kicks in for me. I got him at that number 5 spot. He's still got to be in your top 5 for sure, just because you know what he can do. I agree with you completely. Number 3, lockdown corner in the NFL, can shut anybody down and takes guys out of the game completely.
Yeah, he's great. My number 5, though, is Tre'Davious White. Trey White was just a huge impact on that Bills defense. That Bills defense was one of the best defenses in the NFL. He had 3 picks this year. At the beginning of the year, he was struggling a little bit. He picked it up, and then ever since then, he's just been soaring. He's always been good since he entered the NFL. His career year was 6 picks last year, but I definitely think he's the 4th best cover corner in the NFL for me.
Yeah, I like that. I got him just outside my top 5, but I think without a doubt you could put him up there ahead of Marlon Humphrey. But I just think, he is the best player in that Bills defense for sure. He's a lockdown corner, just like you said. 3 picks, better than some of those other guys at the top. So you got that. He's got the whole package. Brings on interceptions, can lock down guys, can take receivers out of the game. So I agree with you completely. He could for sure be in that top 5 conversation.
Yep. Okay, so that wraps up today's video. It was a little shorter one because we only went 5 guys each position. But let us know who we left off our lists in the comments below. There will be some future interviews with some big time guys in Major League Sports in the month of August. So look out for that. Also, on YouTube support, we found that 70% of people who are watching our videos are not subscribed. So if you would hit the sub button down below, it will help our channel grow a ton. It helps more people see it. It's completely free, no cost. If you guys could just leave a like on the video and subscribe, that would help us tremendously. We'll see you in the next one.